Good morning, everyone. My name is Grace Carey, and welcome to the African Youth Adaptation Solutions Challenges Award Ceremony. And welcome to our distinguished guests, Dr. Akiwumi Adeshino, President of the African Development Bank, Professor Dr. Patrick Verkoyen, CEO of the Global Center on Adaptation, and Ms. Anne Twinnerheim, Norway's Minister of International Development. I would also like to welcome Dr. Kevin Frey, CEO of Generation Unlimited at UNICEF, who will be joining the panel later. And I'd also like to welcome you, members of our audience, both in the room here today and who are watching online. Thank you for coming. Just some brief housekeeping remarks. This session is being live streamed, and there are a couple of hashtags. They are hashtag Youthadapt and hashtag Youthadapt Awards. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the second edition of the Youthadapt Challenge, and this year we received more than 3,500 applicants from across the continent from innovative climate adaptation businesses. One clear takeaway from us this year is that the interest in this challenge is growing phenomenally, and the African Development Bank, in partnership with the Global Center on Adaptation and the Climate Investment Fund, are ready for the increasing demand. Young people are hungry for change, and they know that change will come from innovative climate solutions across several sectors. The youth mean business, and here today, we also mean business. Last year, we gave young people a total of $1 million, and this year, it just got bigger. I'm so delighted to announce that we are awarding 20 youth-led enterprises $2 million this year. We've doubled our efforts. Amazing stuff. This year's winners are ready, and the funders are ready, so let's get started. Let me tell you how this session is going to run. Believe you me, it's going to be action-packed. Firstly, we will hear brief remarks from the founding partners who are all passionate about young people driving innovations in the climate space. We will then unveil this year's winners, and as they say, experience is the best teacher. So this year's winners will also have the opportunity to hear from last year's winners and get a sneak preview of what they've been up to with the funds and mentorships that they received last year. Finally, we will wrap it all up with an interactive dialogue between our special guests and some of the young people who we have here in the audience today. Let us get started with opening remarks from our two co-founder hosts. I'd be delighted to start with President of the African Development Bank, Dr. Akiwumi Adeshino, a strong believer in investing in young people. Welcome, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Grace, and good morning, everybody, and welcome to this session. Let me first welcome my dear sister and friend, Minister Anne Twinnerheim, from the Minister of Development of Norway. She's such a great friend of Africa, a great friend of agriculture, and a great supporter of the bank. So put your hands together for the minister. And as you can see, she's also wearing green, which means the future is green. So that's agriculture where she is. My dear brother, Patrick Verkoyen, bundle of renewable energy in everything we've been doing. Please, the CEO of Global Center on Adaptation and the co-founder of this together with us, youth leaders, business leaders, ladies and gentlemen. And we have a very important person also that I should introduce, which is the newest youth leader that we have. She may stand up, Karen Wanjiri Kimani. Come up on stage. And she wants to be the next Wangari Maathai. So that's it. Thank you very much for coming. Please have a seat, Karen. You know, it's time for us to really continue to speak. So if there's a message I want all the young people today to carry with them, it is this. You know, be the vuvuzelas for Africa on climate change, all right? Vuvuzelas, when you're in the stadium, they can hear you. If you're not in the stadium, they can hear you. Wherever you are, make sure that we hear that Africa's needs cannot be ignored. So I want all of Africa's youth to be the vuvuzela on climate change for Africa. And why? We got 454 million young people in Africa. When we talk about climate change, we're talking about the young people. They will live longer than the rest of us. The world is going to be for them to actually deal with. And therefore, when we save the world, we save it for today's youth, we also save it for tomorrow's youth. The youth, therefore, must be at the center of everything that we are doing with regard to climate change. You cannot ignore the youth and think about climate change. No youth is too young. I just brought up, Karen, for you. No youth is too young to engage on climate dialogue and also to be part of the solution. Why? Africa's youth are very creative. They are very dynamic. They are very engaging. And they're very futuristic. Just look at what has happened in Africa's fintech industry. So the youth are going to be part of the big solution for climate adaptation in Africa. The African Development Bank, together with the Global Center on Adaptation, and also joined by the Climate Investment Fund, set up this Youthadapt initiative to be able to support 10,000 youth in terms of small and medium-sized youth businesses on climate adaptation, but also empower 1 million youth. That would be 1 million youth with vuvuzelas carrying it around about Africa's needs that are going to be heard around the world. But sometimes when we do all these things, you really ask what's been done. You know, yesterday or 2 days ago, Patrick, we had the African leaders on the African Adaptation Acceleration Program. We had global leaders there saying they hear Africa's needs. And our needs are tremendous. We need about $125 billion a year to adapt to climate change by 2025. And so therefore, we need to have resources on the table. And I was very delighted that two countries, in particular, the UK government announced £200 million towards the climate action window of the African Development Bank. And then the government of Netherlands also announced 110 million euros towards the Adaptation Acceleration Program. At the Global Center on Adaptation and also the downstream facility, the Climate Action Window of the African Development Fund at the African Development Bank. And I know that my dear friend and minister is working very hard in Norway, so give her an advance clap for that. Now, I want to say I also set up a Youth Climate Adaptation Council in Glasgow. And the real reason is because we wanted the youth to be speaking for Africa, but also developing solutions for Africa. And many of the Youth Adaptation Council members are here today. You already heard about what we did last year. We had 10 businesses last year with $1 million. I like everything to be double for Africa, double, double. So turn to your neighbor and say double, double for Africa. Fantastic. So last year we did $1 million. This year we did $2 million. Next year it means we are going to do $4 million. So that's the way it's going to go for Africa. Everything will be doubling up for Africa. Just to close, I want to say that when I was looking through the businesses that will be getting the award today, both myself and Minister of Norway are going to be delighted to see that 80% of them are in agriculture. As you know, yeah, that has been my gospel for the last how many decades, that agriculture is the future of Africa. The lowest bar for Africa is for Africa to feed itself. The high bar is for Africa to feed the world. And we have the land to do that, and it is the youth that are going to do that. Agriculture must be made really sexy, cool. It's a business, it's not a way of life. So if you're a young person hearing me from around the world, just realize agriculture is cool. Today's agriculture, the future is agriculture. Nobody drinks oil, nobody smokes gas, but everybody eats food. So, just to close, we are at COP. Now, I want for all the young people that we are talking to do a different thing. CAP. What I mean by that is create, adapt, and then prosper. Let's prosper. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President, for your important remarks and for always being a strong believer in the young people of Africa. Our next speaker has traveled across the continent and has witnessed firsthand Africa at the front line of the climate emergency and is someone who has an abundance of energy and passion for young people. Welcome, Professor Vikoyan.
Well, thank you so much, Grace, for this kind introduction. But before I want to share what I want to share, I first and foremost want to thank Minister Trivenem. Why? Because Anne, your government, you yourself, has been with us on this journey from the beginning. It's extraordinarily important that Africa leadership is there, but it's equally important that the global North is with Africa. 2 days ago, we saw it with your Prime Minister. We've seen it before with you on September 5. You have been with us along the way. In fact, you've been with the youth of Africa along the way. So thank you for Anne, indeed. And then, Mr. President, a little bit of confession time also is appropriate, I think, in this COP. Akin, if I may call you, Akin in public, you're pushing boundaries. You're pushing boundaries within the African Development Bank. You're pushing boundaries with your partners. You're pushing boundaries with the donors. The climate action window is the way to go. We've seen it earlier this week with France, coming on the record with President Macron, with the UK, and with the Netherlands. And I know, we know, there's still a journey to go to finish it, to bring it to the finish line. And I really count on all of us that this capitalization of the climate action will take place next month when it is I think in Morocco, when you convene all the donors. Because it's vital, money comes on the table. And President Adesina, as my big brother, you have often referenced my so-called renewable energy, my passion for the continent. And because why is that? Most of you here are from Africa. I consider myself now an African. Why? Because the impacts of the climate emergency in Africa will not stay in Africa, but will cross across the globe. During my travels in the last few months, I've seen, quite frankly, I mean, Anne, you've traveled a lot as well recently. It is shocking. At these COPs, we talk, we babble, we come with commitments, we come with more commitments on top of the commitments, but there is a real tragedy unfolding on the continent. Not tomorrow or the day after that, now. So there is this climate emergency unfolding. So my renewable energy comes from the necessity to invest in this agenda. Secondly, I also want to recognize Aramid. Aramid, are you here? Aramid is the one within GCA leading on this Youthadapt program. She is banging my door every single day, and she should, because she said adaptation is good business. It's good business to invest in adaptation. And Akin and Anne, I want to share one story of one of the winners of last year, right? Last year, 10 winners. After 10 winners, 7 women. And it was Juveline. Juveline from Cameroon. She won $100,000. But then, as a banker and as a CEO of a GCA, I would think, okay, where is that money going to go to? Is it really relevant? Is it being spent well? Is it being driven the agenda? Well, actually, Juveline has an extraordinary story. From Cameroon, at the age of 6, she started as a waste picker, together with her mother, as a waste picker in Cameroon. And over the years, given that Cameroon has free education, she went to college. Eventually, she did a master's degree online. And she started her own business, Bleakley Waste Management. So what did she do? Picking waste, selling it, making money out of it. This was before the Youthadapt Challenge. Through the Youthadapt Challenge, what she has done is extraordinary. She had the imagination, the boldness. She said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to buy not one or two, I'm going to buy 4 drones. Drones. How much did they cost? $600 each. She managed to get the capital, and what do these drones do? They fly over the towns in Cameroon. When the rains are coming, the drones detect not only where the floods are, but where the blockages are in the drainage canals. And then she sent her part-time workers right there to pick up the waste, bring it back to her factory, separate it, sell it. That was her business model. And she said, I used the Youthadapt program not to only buy the drones, I doubled. You like doubling? I like doubling. She doubled her factories. She doubled her trucks. She doubled her workforce. And now she's making money. So I said to Juveline, who is here at the COP, winning another award, winning another technological award. So I said, what did you get out of this Youthadapt challenge? Norway has funded. What did you get out of it? The Norwegian taxpayers pay for it. What did you get out of it? She said, well, I got the resources to think and dream big, but to deliver. I got a peer, a person I didn't even know in Cameroon. He had an innovation hub. He told me how to do my business. He told me how to go to scale. Right now, Juveline have on her labor force 200 people. Last year, how many? 45. I said, where are you going to go to in the coming years? What is next? She said, I go not doubling from 200 to 4. No, I go from 200 to 1,000 and very quickly to 2,000 workers in Cameroon. Because what I want Cameroon to be flood-free because of the garbage. Why? Not because it's only the right thing to do, it's the economic smart thing to do, it's good business, and that's why, Mr. President, that's why I have renewable energy. To have the Juveline and the Juvelines of the continent not only to prosper, but to thrive. So I thank you very much for coming forward with your nominations. This is the way to go. You have the full support of the African Development Bank. You have the full support of Norway, and you certainly have the full support of the Global Center of Adaptation. I thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Patrick, especially for highlighting one of the incredible success stories from last year's cohorts. Congratulations again. And I think the idea of to think, to dream big, and to deliver is something that we should all apply collectively. And finally, last but certainly not least, I am delighted to introduce a friend of the African Development Bank and the Global Center on Adaptation, and a real supporter of the Africa Adaptation Acceleration Program, Minister Twinnerem. Welcome.
Thank you so much. You know, this is the most inspiring event all week for me. I'm so excited. Thank you, Akin, thank you, Patrick, but most of all, thank you for being here. And thank you for the solutions, giving us the examples of what actually works. You know, it's fun to be at the COP, but I think you all agree with me that what we really want to do is get out of the conference center and get some action on the ground. And it's not easy. And you know, COP after COP, we've been talking about how we need to bring solutions to scale to solve the tremendous challenges that we are facing. And yes, we have to bring things at scale, but on adaptations, the concrete solutions are about tailor-making action on the ground. It can't be up there. It has to be tailor-made for each community. And then we can bring it to scale, but we have to bring it to scale bottom up. And that's where you come in, that's where the youth of Africa come in, because you see the problems and you see the solutions, and you have the energy and the resources to deliver. And we want to help you with that. So I want to thank the bank, I want to thank the center, I want to thank all of you delivering on the AAAP, and also let me mention the gender perspective, because I'm truly impressed by how you're putting gender also in the center of the work that you are doing. And you know what? Adaptation comes from necessity. We have no choice. We have to adapt. We have to become more resilient. We have to find the smart solutions in the communities. But if adaptation comes from necessity, it also provides a whole lot of opportunities, a whole lot of possibilities for jobs, for entrepreneurship, and that's where we're going to prosper. So I'm just really looking forward to hearing the good examples, hearing how we can help each other to scale it up. Best of luck to the winners and to all the others out there who are also winners, because we are going to get that adaptation work done. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. What really stood out to me was your point about the tailor-made solutions coming from each community and leveraging on the expertise of the young people across Africa. Fantastic. So now we would like to welcome Professor Anthony Nyong, Senior Director at the Global Center on Adaptation, who will give a presentation of the AAAP program. Welcome, Professor.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Good morning, Professor Patrick, Honorable Minister. Thank you very much. I'm really quite excited. Last year, some people said they shed tears when they saw what young kids were doing. Not kids per se, but our young ones. This year, let's see how many more people will shed tears on this. So, the Africa Adaptation Acceleration Program, can we have it on? This is the largest, boldest adaptation program anywhere in the world. And it's a joint initiative between the African Development Bank and the Global Center on Adaptation. It's 25 billion. Billion. It's $25 billion. And the African Development Bank has graciously placed 12.5 billion on the table. I think the bank deserves a clap. We are mobilizing the remaining 12.5 billion. Why? Because it's the right thing to do. Africa suffers so much when it contributes the least to global warming and climate change. So adaptation is really quite important for us. And what are we doing? We don't want to replicate, we don't want to duplicate what others are doing. We identified the niche and in fact the gaps that are yet to be filled in Africa. And we identified 4 key areas that we will intervene to scale up and accelerate adaptation on the African continent. 4 bold ideas. The first is agriculture. Not because the president said it, but that's what everyone said they want. Agriculture. What about agriculture? In Africa, if it rains, we eat. It doesn't rain, we starve. And that's not the way to go. So what is missing is the introduction and adoption of climate-enabled digital solutions. And so that's the only thing we are doing, focused on that. And where this is happening, we're seeing increases in productivity income ranging between 40 and 70%. That's the right thing to do. The second is on infrastructure. 70% of Africa's infrastructure is yet to be built. And we believe it's better to do it right the first time than to retrofit later. We have abundant natural resources through the nature-based solutions that we can work on. So we concentrate on building resilience in and through our infrastructure, whether it's energy, water, transportation, ports, name them, we are there. The third is on youth. Like we've seen, innovative people. But median age in Africa, 19.7 years. This could be a liability or it could be an asset. At the AAAP, we've chosen to make it an asset. And what we're doing is every project that we intervene in must demonstrate how it's creating jobs. We need to create jobs for our young ones. But many of our young ones don't want our jobs. They're entrepreneurial. They want to do it themselves. They want to recruit people. Who is going to hire the lady we've just talked about today? She wouldn't even want your job. And we've said it. The president has mentioned fintechs. But I keep saying M-Pesa, that is the mother of all mobile monies, was not invented in Europe, somewhere in Africa. And in this same continent, there are still those can-do youths, can-do spirits that we will identify and bring up. And that's why we're here today. Finally, money. The present mode of financing climate change is not working. We need innovative solutions. And the AAAP is putting those solutions on the table. We cannot continue this way. So, but we're here because of the youth. But that's what we do for the continent. Just for those who don't know, this is the Africa Adaptation Acceleration Program. Thank you very much.
The professor has spoken. Thank you, Professor. Before we unveil this year's winners, you must be curious about how last year's winners are doing. I certainly am, and I'd be keen to know what kind of impact they've had so far. We already got a snapshot earlier from Professor Patrick. So I would like to get more context from Edith Adera, the AAAP Secretariat Coordinator at the African Development Bank. Welcome, Edith.
Thank you very much. I can tell you I'm also extremely excited to share with you what the winners from last year are doing, to really show that the Youthadapt program is moving the needle. It's no longer talk. The young people are having action on the ground. With the next slide, please, put up the slide. I like what Mr. President said, create, adapt, and prosper. And really, that's what the young people are doing. Today, we have two of the winners from last year with us. We have Eric Bosire from Lab. Eric. We have Jesseline from Mumita Holdings in Cameroon. And as Patrick mentioned, Juveline will be joining us later. She's receiving an award as we speak, which tells you they are winners, and we have many more winners. If you can put up the slide, technical team. These Youth Award winners will actually also, from last year, will be showcasing their innovations on Saturday, the 12th of November, from 3 to 4:30 p.m. at the Youth Pavilion. At the Youth Pavilion, they had a lot of applications, over 500. So these youth were the top 50 to showcase their work, which really shows that they're making a big difference. I'd like to show you, and I hope the slide can come up. Okay, we'll give them a few minutes to bring up the slide. Okay. Okay, let me just go on if the slides are not coming up. What I'd like to tell you, which is to me absolutely amazing, the winners of last year were announced at COP27. They had 12 months of acceleration, mentorship, and support. In 12 months, what they've been able to achieve is incredible. Okay. Let me see if I'm able to control this. Sorry? The technical team, I'll need somebody to show me how to use this, please. Yeah, I need to show the slides. Okay, so they need to move the slides. She's gone with it.
Can you go left or right?
Okay, so the next slide, please. Okay, thank you very much. So these were the winners for last year. As I mentioned, they got business and technical support over the last months and 100,000 US dollars of grant funding support. As we mentioned, there were 10 winners, and we had an additional 5 winners from Francophone Africa. So that gives us 15 winners from 10 countries. Next slide. Now, it's very amazing what they've been able to achieve, over the last 12 months. They have created 174 direct jobs, had about over 7,500 indirect jobs, and mobilized close to 100,000 US dollars of 4 of the enterprises. What's also amazing is that many of them have mentioned that they've actually been able to increase their revenues up to 50% in that span of time. And it looks like there's this magic of doubling, and many of them have doubled their production capacity. Others are entering new markets, and then they're also beginning to have discussions with equity funders as well, and equity partners who are coming in, and other funders. So they've done incredibly well in 12 months. One of the things I've been telling my colleagues, we have been moving incrementally. 15 years, winners last year, 20 winners this year. We need to double, triple, and get to our 10,000. I did the calculation. It will take us, I think, 500 years if we were to go incrementally. So we need to improve the scale and the speed of really getting to the 10,000 and more. My last slide, I'm going to give you a deep dive on one of the enterprises. If I can get the next slide. And this is a very interesting enterprise by Mumita Holdings. Jesseline is here with us. Jesseline works with farmers who are doing traditional vegetables in Cameroon. With the funding support that she's been able to get, she's been able to expand the greenhouses. She's also been able to expand the capacity of production. And now she's been able to aggregate production the whole year round. And this has allowed her to have product options. Either you can have frozen African vegetables, or you can have dried African vegetables. She does the packaging herself, and she's exporting this outside of Cameroon and exporting it internationally. So this is what our young people can do when they get support. I'd like to conclude by saying that we can see the African youth are leading the way. And they're not leading the way in talk. They're actually leading the way in concrete action on the ground as agents of change, as innovators, and as entrepreneurs. AAAP is leading the charge in taking these innovations to scale. I'd like to ask our partners to join us to actually double, triple, and really get to the target that we have on this program. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Edith. You shared some really impressive figures there, which I'm sure will be very encouraging for this year's cohort. I would now like to call on the program lead for Jobs for Youth and Entrepreneurship at the Global Center on Adaptation, Aramide Abe, who will talk about this year's challenge. Welcome, Aramide.
Thank you, Grace. Hello, everyone, and distinguished guests. So very quickly, I'll be speaking to the challenge, the process, because I'm sure a lot of you are interested in how we came about our winners. So just to take you through the process that we went through very, very briefly. Of course, we run a call for applications across the continent, for those of you who don't know, and so we'll be doing the same next year. After this process, we were then able to assess the applications that came in as a first level. And then we moved on to a jury evaluation process where we then identified the top 50. After this, they then had pitch days where they pitched to the juries, and that was how we were able to then summarize and get the conclusive set of 20 winners. In terms of key numbers, we had just over 3,500 applications, so 3,700 specifically. Applications came in from around the continent, 51 countries actually, which was great. So around North Africa, Central, South, East, West Africa. In terms of the gender split, there was a 55% female representation, and you see that in the winners that we will announce today, which is great because we have a mainstreaming adaptation target of 50%, so we went over our target, which is fantastic. We're very big on adaptation and innovation, digital innovation. So some of the sectors that were represented include agriculture, energy, of course, digital solutions, water, waste, and the list goes on. And you see that today. Finally, as you know, it's a youth adaptation challenge, and so the eligibility ranges from the ages of 18 to 35, and 80% of our winners represented that group, which is great. So now we're moving on to the unveil, and please sit back and enjoy. Thank you.
Thanks, Aramide. So, ladies and gentlemen, you've heard remarks and you've seen presentations, and now is the moment that we've all been waiting for. Who are this year's winners? Well, your guess is as good as mine, but we are about to find out. Can we roll the video, please? Could we have sound 2, tech team? Hi guys, there is technical issues with the sound. So tech team, could we just show the 20 winners now? Could we cut to them live? Tech team, can you cut to the live winners, please? So that we can engage with them. Okay, so while we wait for the tech team to load the 20 winners, we will be speaking to 2 winners. One of them is Yvette Ishimwe from Rwanda, and we'll also be speaking to Moussa Diouf from Senegal. Okay, while we wait for the live to happen, as mentioned, ladies and gentlemen, we will have 20 winners, and each of them will be receiving up to 100,000 USD for their brilliant ideas, and that comes to a total of $2 million through this initiative. And in addition to the capital, they will also be getting 12 months of mentorship, which is incredible stuff. So please join me one more time in congratulating all the winners. And I'm sure this achievement will be an inspiration to many more next year. As you can see on the screen, the 20 winners are shown there. I'll try one more last time with the live link. If not, we'll cut to the dialogue. No worries.
So Grace, what we need to do, why don't you list out the 20 winners, the names, and just their backgrounds, and then we keep going.
Hello, can everyone hear me? Apologies. Oh, okay. We have the Zoom winners on as well, which is fantastic. Apologies for the technical glitches. We will be presenting our 20 now. If you just bear with me, and I'll read out their names and the countries and where they're from. And so here we announce our top 20 winners for the Youthadapt Challenge for 2022, live from the Africa Pavilion at COP27 Sharm el-Sheikh. We have, to start with, segment Agriculture and Food, Malawi, Joyce Sikwese, Green Impact Technologies. Second, from Kenya, Mariana Gichanga, Agri-Tech Analytics. In no particular order as well. Third, from Egypt, Reham Yahia, Baramoda. Fourth, from Cameroon, Pelkins Ajano, Casavita Limited. A round of applause for him. Kenya, Esther Kimani, Farmer Lifeline Technologies. A round of applause for her. Nigeria, Rebecca Andeshi, Grow Circular Agro Services. A round of applause for her, please. Botswana, Makwena Moesi, Viva Organica. A round of applause for her. There's quite a few hers here. We're quite proud of our women today. Egypt, Moata's Yusri, Voltex for Engineering and Industries. A round of applause for him, please. Ghana, Rose Noah, West African Feeds. A round of applause for her. Senegal, Moussa Diouf, agro expert farming. A round of applause for him. Algeria, Nassim Ilmani, Euro-Algérien des Industries Technologiques. A round of applause for him, please. Côte d'Ivoire, Noel Nguessan, Lono. A round of applause for him, please. Nigeria, Olowo Shinre Oluwadamilola, Peso Green Technologies. A round of applause for her, please. Uganda, Frank Mugisha, Akatale on Cloud. A round of applause for him, please. Cameroon, Anna Ngweyi Mafor, Multi-Tech Sustainable Solutions. Can we give her a round of applause? Fisheries and aquaculture, moving on to the next segment. Kenya, Robin Ndungu, Kisimue Organics Limited. Can we give him a round of applause? Water resources and sanitation, next segment. Namibia, Kaveto Chajare, apologies. Flush is the name of the organization. A round of applause for him. Nigeria, Rita Idehai, Ecobata. Can we give her a round of applause? Rwanda, Yvette Ishimwe, Iriba Water Group Limited. Can we give her a round of applause? Malawi, Ulaya Mwale, Mpatsa Engineering Company Limited. Can we give him a round of applause? And that is our top 20 winners. I will now hand over to Grace to engage with some of our winners who are online with us. In fact, all of them are online with us, but she will engage with a few of them. Thank you.
Thanks, Aramide. I'm delighted to call on Yvette Imishwe from Rwanda. Hello, Yvette. Can you hear me?
Hello, hello. Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, perfect. Congratulations, Yvette. It's so good to have you here together with the other 19 applicants or winners. So now our audience is eager to know, and so am I. Can you tell us briefly in 1 minute, what does this award mean to you?
I mean, this award is a huge opportunity, and it proves to us, and myself and my whole team at the River Water Group, that what you're doing is actually important and that we should keep it up. And this is really going to take our enterprise to a whole new level. Plan to use this award money to set up new tap and drink systems in more towns and schools across Rwanda and DRC. And that means more people gaining access to clean drinking water. That means more jobs being created. And that means we're going to be able to have a bigger influence, behavior change around the use of rainwater as a prized resource. And we can't really thank enough the Global Center of Adaptation, the African Development Fund, and Climate Investment Funds for these life-changing opportunities. We are very, very grateful. And thank you so much for this opportunity.
That's so awesome. Thank you, Yvette. Keep up the good work. So good to hear from you. And now we're going to cross over to the other side of the continent and speak to Moussa Diop from Senegal. Moussa, vous êtes là?
Oui, je suis là, ça va,
Oui, bonjour. Merci d'être venu. My French is not as good as my English, so I would just say félicitations, Moussa. The same question goes to you. Can you tell us what this award means to you? And again, you have 1 minute. Alors, vous.
Ok, merci à tout le monde. Donc, voilà, moi, je m'appelle Moussa Diouf. Je suis le fondateur de AgroSPF Famille. Voilà, donc, je suis très content d'avoir ce financement. Voilà, ça signifie beaucoup de choses. C'est vraiment énorme pour moi, c'est énorme pour mon entreprise. Donc, ça signifie que nous allons augmenter voilà, la capacité de notre entreprise à impacter beaucoup plus de population agriculteurs au Sénégal. Nous allons augmenter le nombre d'agriculteurs que nous allons servir cette année avec ce financement. Et donc, quand on augmente le nombre d'agriculteurs que nous allons impacter, ça veut dire que nous allons augmenter le chiffre d'affaires de notre entreprise. Donc, nous allons aussi la Mauritanie, donc, qui va nous permettre d'aider encore beaucoup plus de petits agriculteurs en Afrique.
Oh, merci beaucoup. C'est génial, Moussa. Félicitations encore. So, so, ladies and gentlemen, we've heard from everyone, and now we're going to have a brief dialogue with our panelists here and with a couple of members of our audience. Thank you. Thank you both for your time so far and for sharing your excellent insights. Before we open it up to the audience, it would be great to hear your reflections on what we've seen so far and your ideas on how we scale up this excellent Youthadapt initiative. Let's start with you, Dr. Adeshina, please.
Well, thank you very much. I think first and foremost, I am absolutely delighted with the announcement this year that we are having $2 million for these really very exciting businesses that have been set up. And just listening to what Yvette said, that this is just life-changing opportunities. You can imagine young people changing opportunities for themselves, opportunities for their businesses, opportunities for their own communities, but also having a can-do spirit, can-expand spirit for Africa. That's really what this is all about. So I'm very excited about all the awardees that we have this year, and I know they will do great things. So, let's just keep going.
Thank you, Dr. Adeshino. And would you all please welcome our third panelist, Dr. Kevin Frey from UNICEF. Thank you for joining us. And it would be great to also hear your thoughts on what you've heard so far.
It's been, I think we heard from an earlier speaker today, one of the most inspirational sessions of the week. If I was to be totally honest, I've been a little troubled walking around COP the last few days. And one of the things that has troubled me is, in fact, the average age of this conference. But when I looked to the TV screen and those winners, I saw the youth, I saw the future. I saw the entrepreneurs who are going to disrupt, who are going to provoke, who are going to create the small enterprises, the medium enterprises, but also those green unicorns that will actually take us to a green and sustainable future. So I'm so excited to be at this session with AFDB, with GCA, focused on young people. I think COP needs young people at the center, and that's why it's so exciting to be here today.
Thank you so much, Dr. Frey. And the work that you're doing at Generation Unlimited is really pioneering. So thank you for being here. And last but certainly not least, Professor Vakoyan, can I invite you to share your reflections?
Well, thank you so much, Grace. My reflection is not so much on the scale, because we need scale, but it's on the speed of the transformation which is required. I mean, I know, Professor Adesina, you have not one honorary doctorate or three. You collected them. You're an honorary doctor in this and in that, so you're much better also a mathematician than I am. So the doubling in and of itself, the doubling will not do this to get to the 10,000. So I think we now need to find a path forward, not just for the future, but for the present, to really speed up this program. I think we need to work with other partners to bring into this, because quite frankly, Grace, we are living in a world of multiple crises. I mean, we're still recovering from COVID. There is something like Ukraine. I mean, there are very progressive development ministers. We had Anne with us as one of those examples. But there are also different forces globally. And the most often question I get from any interview in the Western press Why are we investing in Africa? What is in it for us? And I think the answer is, it's jobs, jobs, jobs. It's not a moral agenda alone. It's an economic agenda. I think that story needs to come out much stronger. And for that, we need examples. We need to, we were just whispering on stage. We need to go to Bill Gates as soon as possible to anchor this program. Not 20 winners next year. I don't want to dare to use a number, but a much higher number. 50 winners next year. And then triple and quadruple. I think that's the challenge what we need to do. We saw 3,500 applicants and 20 winners, which means there are still 3,500 businesses who want to join this journey. There are thousands of young people who are ready to join the climate entrepreneurship movement. I think we are ready to support them, but we really need the support of the global community to lift this agenda.
He and I were just talking on stage about how we are going to do that. But let me tell you, because in the interest of transparency, it's important to see what our plan is. So let me lay that plan out for everybody. First and foremost is that at the African Development Bank, we will incorporate what we call youth markers into all of our lending operations. Now, today at the African Development Bank, we have something that's called gender marker. You cannot get anything done and financed at the African Development Bank without saying what you're going to do for women in Africa, because we fundamentally believe that when women win, Africa wins. So we have been so successful, 100% of all of our operations at the African Development Bank are gender marked. So that just tells you how, and we are the first institution globally to be that. So when we do that for young people, we will also be the first in the world to do that. What does that mean concretely? For example, you're looking at Global Center for Adaptation. We used, what, $10 million, right, from you to allow us to incorporate in our lending program $1 billion for climate resilient infrastructure. So when we do this kind of gender marking, it can bring in a lot more billions of dollars that will impact on young people. Because I want the African Development Bank being accountable for young people in Africa. The second one is all these young businesses, the ones from last year, the ones that are all on the screen, all of you, congratulations. Can you please clap for them once again? We don't want you remaining small, and I think the UNICEF, what's the name of the place? Kevin, yeah, Kevin said it, the new unicorns for adaptation, we will call them adaptation unicorns. Yesterday, I was speaking to the business leaders in Africa. It's called Africa Business Leaders Coalition. It's a coalition of 50 businesses with a total of revenue of about $140 billion. And they put up a climate action agenda. And so what I want to propose here is a deliberate program that will connect the businesses that we are giving today, all of you guys, and the ones that we already gave, to the Africa Business Leaders Coalition, because you got to grow your businesses. You got to be connected to the supply chains, right? We don't want you being small. We want you big. So that is the second action that we are going to take. The third action we are going to take is a Youth Climate Adapt Acceleration Program. In other words, we have at the African Development Bank a Youth Entrepreneurship and Innovation Trust, which is right now about $40 million. But we want to use those things, part of that money, and Anne is not here. There is Norway, Denmark, Sweden, Italy, and Netherlands that are part of that. We want to use that youth entrepreneurship, youth innovation and entrepreneurship fund to be able to have an acceleration program that will continue to make these businesses to grow. The next one that I want to say is what Patrick just said about philanthropic organizations. I was just talking to him, or whispering to him actually, that we will make a big trip next year, knocking on the door of every big philanthropist in the world to invest in these young businesses for Africa. Because to get to the numbers that you guys are looking at, 10,000, will require literally $100 million. And I'm confident we can raise that money for these young people because you are investing in the future. You are also investing to also deal with climate issues, and I'm sure that they will take them. Last one that I want to say is the African Development Bank. We're currently developing what is called Youth Entrepreneurship Investment Banks. Look, we got 454 million young people in Africa. They are going to grow to 850 something million by 2050. That is our best demographic asset. But there are no financial institutions today around them. So when you find young people going to Europe, going to Mediterranean and dying over there and going, the future of Africa's youth is not in Europe. The future of Africa's youth is not in the United States. It's not in Asia. It's in Africa, thriving, growing, able to create decent jobs for our young people. And it is high time that we take our financial resources and put them at risk on behalf of Africa's youth. Now, the Youth Entrepreneurship Investment Banks, you go around, we all go around Africa. What do you have? Youth Empowerment Program here, another Youth Empowerment Program here. I can tell you, everywhere I've gone, I've never seen a young person come to me and said, I've been empowered, right? So it just sounds like the people wanting to empower them are empowering themselves. But if you're a young person who goes to a bank, what do they ask you? Now, I want to ask you, you take this microphone. Yeah. When you go to financial institutions, you walk into a bank and they tell you, you want to tell them what they tell you.
Yeah, and it's true. When we go to institution banks, they need collaterals, which is really a big thing. They need collateral. They need to see, of course, your audited accounts and everything, but they're interested to see the numbers. They want to see some serious numbers.
So they want to see the numbers.
Yeah.
Let me hear from her. She's one of our winners as well.
Thank you. When you go to the banks, they check on your longevity. They equally check on the age of the youth and equally on the, as he said, the numbers.
Okay, so when they look at your age, you're 21 years old, they ask you for your tax receipts for the last 40 years. They ask you for collaterals that you don't have. And as a young person, when the banks actually just see you, they see risk, 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 and risk. And Africa's youth are not risky. I've never seen any African young person that wants to fail. So the financial ecosystem must be redesigned to allow us to create a new ecosystem that supports the businesses of young people to thrive in this continent. And that's why the African Development Bank is developing these youth entrepreneurship investment banks. What will they do? They will do the following. They will support businesses like yours in the life cycle of their businesses. It's not just something you do today. They will deploy technical assistance, business development services, business acceleration services, debt finance, de-risk, and equity. Let me give you an example. I went to Cape Verde. I walked into a shop, and there was this business called M&J. M&J. The young people, 25, 26, brother and sister, they have become now one of the largest businesses, young people in Cape Verde. They started 3 years ago. They grew their revenue to 7.8 million euros in 3 years. They got a grant of 400,000 euros from the Ministry of Finance. The Minister of Finance was in front of me, and they said to him, we pay taxes of 980,000 euros after 2 years. Just imagine what that is. So these youth entrepreneurship investment banks will scale that kind of thing up. So we will be with the young people on this continent with a brand new financial institution that you can walk into, forget There'll be nobody wearing bow ties and stuff like that there. There'll be businesses of designed only to catalyze, to inspire, and to grow the businesses of young people. So that's our plan. That's our vision. I am very, very confident. I have faith. We have faith in Africa's youth. But now we will make all financial institutions to back Africa's youth because that's our greatest asset. And we must therefore put our capital at risk on behalf of Africa's young people. I have every confidence that Africa's youth will thrive and prosper in this world, but right here in Africa, not outside.
Wow. Thank you so much, Dr. Adeshina. As we can all see, so many major things have been done, and we have so many exciting things to come. I think this would be a great window to open up the floor to the youth in our audience right now, or members of the audience generally, to take a couple of questions. Any questions? Or to explain or to share what you guys want to do. Yeah? I'll come to you. If you could say your name, where you're from, and who your question is directed to.
Hi, everyone, and good afternoon. I think I'm Shiona Kediron. I'm an adolescent development specialist on the Generation Unlimited initiative with UNICEF. And Ekasonsa, I'm Nigerian. One of the things I would like to say is I commend your ambitions and your plans to support young people. You have that in common, and that would definitely help the young people, not only in Nigeria, but in Africa. I work on youth programs, right, to ensure that young people are skilled, to ensure that they have opportunities, rights, and access to financing, and also scaling the initiatives that they do currently. With what you've said about financing, for instance, with the Entrepreneurship Investment Bank, how would that relate with startups as well? We do know that the tech sector is growing across Africa, including Nigeria, but looking at agriculture and fintechs and all of that, how would that promote startups in Nigeria? Because we have a lot of them who collapse within the first year. And and this question is for everyone, what can be done and what advice as well can you give young people who are in that area? Thank you.
Well, let me quickly just take that. You're from Nigeria. So in Nigeria, the African Development Bank just did a big program for Nigeria. It's called a support for digital enterprises and also creative industry. It's called iDice program, which we are supporting with about $170 million to support those digital entrepreneurs and others in Nigeria. Just 2 weeks ago, I was having a discussion with Microsoft. We have a memorandum of understanding with Microsoft on Africa technology transformation that they have. We are creating centers of excellence. We are creating coding centers. We're going to do 135 coding centers that will make Africa young people become world-class coders. If you take the case like in Rwanda, we have today Kigali Coding Academy, which is a world-class academy. Now, in terms of the private equity, the private equity funds don't like to come into green businesses, right? So you can have some venture capital for those, but what we want to do with the Youth Entrepreneurship Investment Banks is that once we've supported the young businesses and they've grown and they have a good revenue profile, then we can actually move them. The private equity funds can say, oh, that's a good business that can actually put money into it. So that's how we are going to transition into those kind of businesses, connecting the private equity at a point in time with the Youth Entrepreneurship Investment Bank. And I hope that answers your question.
Great. We have a question at the front.
Thank you very much. Oh.
Maybe just very quickly to add, on the failure rate that you were talking about with startups in that first year where there's a very, very high failure rate, the key is to work with those incubators. So financing is necessary but insufficient. One of our big partners in Nigeria, as you know, is the Tony Elumelu Foundation, over 2 million entrepreneurs within that ecosystem. But the point here is that you need mentorship, you need internships, you need access to networks, partners, supply chains. So to surround them with a supportive ecosystem when the financing comes in, then we see significant reductions in that failure rate in that very sensitive first, second year.
Thank you very much for the fantastic discussions. Thank you, Mr. President, for sharing not just the initiatives, but the passion for Africa that is clearly in there. So one comment, one question. The idea of having an entrepreneurship investment bank is absolutely fantastic. I admire the efforts that you've already undergone so far in order to crowd in private sector investments, investments from other development agencies in there, which is the way to go if we are to achieve the huge vision and objectives that you have in there. I'm here part of the technical discussions, mainly focusing on the implementation of Paris Agreement relative to building the capacity within the financial industry, within the technology area, as well as general capacity building, enabling markets mainly. One of the key issues there were the risk associated with African markets and the risk associated with the majority of African businesses. Do you see the African Development Bank playing a role in de-risking those investments in there, bringing partners from the banks, insurance companies, and the like, to have the sustainable infrastructure platform-like activity and initiatives to sort that out once and for all? Thank you very much.
I will take one more question from a gentleman coming.
Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity. My name is Dauda Cham. I am from the Gambia, a member of UNICEF Africa Young Voices from the Sahel initiative, and also the Africa Youth Mobilization for COP. So the question I wanted to ask is, I've seen that I think all of these winners are people who have already started, or their projects or initiatives are already running. So in a case where somebody who is just starting or is at the ideation stage of their business, would they have the chance to win this initiative? Yes.
Thank you for that brief question. Can we squeeze in one more?
Thank you. Mr. President, a question for you. My name is Mark Watum. I'm from South Africa. I'm the founder of both Vertex Ecosystem and president of the Vision 2030 Fund. Vertex Ecosystem, so you know, is an entrepreneurial empowerment ecosystem. Incubation, acceleration, mentorship, pitching, preparation opportunities all in one space. You said that you can't meet one youth in your life who says they've been empowered, but in our proofing stages, we have at least 1,000 entrepreneurs who would say otherwise. We have empowered them, and I invite you into our space to learn about that. My question is, from our fund's perspective, we've approached AFDB personnel to get support, and we've always been given the response that the impression is it's an exclusive club, it's very difficult to get the support we seek, it's hard to break into unless you're a winner of a challenge. How can we get correct exposure to projects that actually empower our youth, our environment, our agriculture, water systems, and all innovations that we're here to discuss in this conference? What would you say to that, sir? Please.
Great. And our final question comes from the youngest delegate at COP, Karen.
Hi, everyone. My name is Karen Wanjiru Kimani. I'm 9 years old, but I'm turning 10 on November 22nd. I come from Kenya, and I advocate tree for planting, and also doing recycling of plastic. My question is, when I went to Spain in 2019 and my monologue on the dangers of plastic, I won a silver award. I was very excited. I learned that people in Tenerife use biodegradable bottles, which is a very good for our environment. I have since then wanted to do the same in Kenya. My question is, how can you, my project, get funding to help me succeed with the idea since I am only 9 years old.
Well, let me say that as a 9-year-old, you're starting a business, that's the way to go. I'll say that to give you an example to encourage you. There was one of the sons of my friend was a professor in the United States. I went to see him, and he was just 11 years old, just 2 years older than what you are now. And I got into their house, and he had headphones. And he spent hours and hours on the computer. So I was very concerned that he wasn't going to get far by playing video games all the time. So I went to him and I said, look, you should stop playing video games and maybe concentrate on doing something else. And he took his headphone off and he said, I am in a board meeting. And I said, board meeting? What kind of board meeting? At that age, he had created a company. His elder brothers were at Yale and Harvard and so on, and they joined him in that company. Today, that company is called Relief. If you go on the internet, just click it, it's called Relief. I brought them to Nigeria. I exposed them to the financial systems. I exposed them to technology. Today, they are running multi-billion-dollar business, starting from the age like you are. So I then gave him a name. His name was Toby. And when he wanted to go to university, he asked me to write him a recommendation. And I said, I'm president of the African Development Bank. I'm writing this recommendation not for Toby, but for Chairman Toby. And they took him. So your future is going to be bright. And just to make sure you do that, I have a foundation with my wife and I that I set up when I won the World Food Prize. You give me your proposal, you will get it funded next week. Secondly, on the issue of de-risking, somebody asked me to de-risk. I don't know where the person. Yeah, thank you. On the de-risking thing, and I'm glad that you asked the question as a woman also. When we talk about risk, there is the Africa risk perception. So I have a feeling that what we are really de-risking in Africa, it's not really the risk, it's the perception risk. And the data shows it. Moody Analytics looked at the cost, the default on infrastructure financing around the world for 14 years. You know what they found? That infrastructure defaults in Africa, it's only 5%. In Latin America, 12.8%. In Western Europe, probably about almost 6% or more. If you look at even Eastern Europe, almost 9%. And so Africa is not as risky as you think. We just finished the Africa Investment Forum last week. In less than 72 hours, we mobilized $31 billion on this continent in Africa in less than 72 hours. And when you take that with what we did, even virtually this year, we did the Africa Investment Forum virtually. We raised $32.8 billion of commitments to Africa virtually in less than 72 hours. Does that sound to you like a place that's very risky? No, Africa is not as risky as you think. The second thing is, how do you de-risk businesses for women? We have a program at the bank, and actually the vice president is here, so I'm going to let her talk about it. It's called Affirmative Finance Action to Women in Africa, to de-risk the businesses of women. And I am actually a big supporter of that program, and it's delivering incredible results. But I'll let my vice president talk about it.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and greetings, all of you, especially the young people in the room. The Affirmative Finance Action for Women in Africa is really about, again, de-risking this bias against lending to women. And what it does is it works to give women the tools that they need to be able to access the formal financial sector, to help make women bankable, but also work with financial institutions to help them understand what women SMEs need and help them make products that are designed for women entrepreneurs, to make banks womenable. And again, we're on track really to have approvals to get $1 billion worth of financing out to women SMEs by the end of this year.
Yeah. I just want to say that women, they pay back 98% of all their loans. So women are bankable. The remaining 2% is probably the men that tell them don't pay everything, and then, So, but as the Vice President was saying, we did last year for women businesses approval of $540 million. This year, we will do another $500 million to reach $1 billion. Now, the other issue that I want to talk about is you talk about the infrastructure, the risk in infrastructure. Yeah, multilateral development banks, we have the tools to de-risk infrastructure. We do that all the time at the African Development Bank. And we just launched, yesterday, what's called the Alliance for Green Infrastructure in Africa to mobilize $10 billion for infrastructure in Africa. On the issue of Gambia, I'm going to let you talk about that because, go ahead and talk about that.
Before I want to talk about Gambia, actually I want to come back to you, Karen. You're 9 now, and in 2030, you will be 16, perhaps even turning 17. Even before your productive peak. At that time, the world will be in a 1.5-degree warming scenario. But that means, that's on average. That means that's 3 degrees for Africa. So large parts of Africa will, quite frankly, will be uninhabitable if we don't act now. So Karen, I was in Kenya. I didn't see you, but I saw others. I was in Makueni. And in Makueni, I was met by women. They called themselves not climate entrepreneurs, but climate warriors. What did they do? They were building sand dams, so they didn't have to walk the whole day to fetch water, but to collect it nearby. They were building pasture farms. They said, we have the solutions, but it had to scale up. So I was there with them, Karen, for a day. And at the end, when I left, I think it's a Kenyan tradition, and your mother will perhaps even confirm that, they were singing a song. And that song, the lyric of the song was, if you climb a mountain, you find good things on top of it. And that's precisely with this agenda. Investing in youth, investing in the youth entrepreneurship banks, investing in resilient infrastructure, investing, quite frankly, Karen, in your business, which is now fully funded by President Adesina as of next week. That's exactly the way to go, because if you climb that mountain, there are good things to be found on top of it.
Yeah, I just wanted to say for the Gambia, if you can, where are you? Yeah, so I think you were talking about whether this can support those that are just trying to, yes, all these businesses that you see here were not established businesses. They were all green businesses. And we actually look at their proposals, we like what they are doing, we like their vision, and we say, well, look, we will fund ideas. If you don't have money, it doesn't matter how much your ideas are worth, you will not be able to implement them. So yes, this actually funds green businesses. And to, sorry, what's your name, from South Africa? Huh? Mark, yeah. Now, what I was talking about empowerment, what I mean is this. Africa's youth need investment. It's not about whether, 100 here, 1,000 there. No. We got 454 million young people. What they need, in my view, is not empowerment. What they need is investment. Create the opportunities for them. Give them the skills, the capacity, the ecosystem to thrive. But my goodness, give them the money that they need to turn their ideas into great businesses. My friend Bill Gates, if he was in Africa, maybe he might not have thrived because the financial system may not have supported his ideas as a young person. That's why I'm saying that we need to put our capital at risk on behalf of the young people in Africa, turn their ideas into world-class businesses. And so the other thing I want to say is that I think you should connect also with our team. The Vice President is right in front of you to make sure that we are able to see how we can support the great work that you are doing over there. So I think that's pretty much wraps up the questions for us. But thank you very much and keep up your good work on that.
So Patrick from the Global Center on Adaptation has to leave right now. Thank you so much for your time, Patrick. And thank you for your insights. So we're going to take a quick family photo with our distinguished guests and the winners. Yes, of course. You can leave it up here.
Hello, taste.